Before the world knew the name Rocky, before the muscles, the fame, the slow motion punches, there was a man who could barely speak clearly enough for people to listen. Sylvester Stallone was not born with talent people admired. He was born with damage. Nerve damage at birth left half his face partially paralyzed. His speech came out slurred. His expressions looked strange to casting directors. Not unique, not interesting, just wrong. In Hollywood, wrong is a death sentence. He didn't have money to soften it. He didn't have connections to explain it. And he didn't have a plan B to hide behind. What he had was stubbornness so deep it almost looked like delusion. New York, late 1960s. Stallone slept wherever he could. Bus stations, cheap rooms, sometimes the street. Auditions came and went. Rejections didn't come politely. They didn't say maybe later. They said no, immediately. Sometimes before he finished speaking. You look weird. You sound wrong. You're not leading man material. After a while, those words stop hurting. They just start sounding like facts. He ran out of money first, then food, then dignity, and finally he ran out of options. He loved his dog more than anything he owned, because the dog was almost the only thing he owned. But love doesn't pay rent. Love doesn't buy food. One cold day, standing outside a liquor store, Sylvester Stallone sold his dog. Not because he wanted to, because he had to eat. That moment breaks most people, because it's not dramatic, it's quiet, it's humiliating. No audience, no music, just a man realizing that belief doesn't mean survival. And here's the dangerous part. This is where most dreams die. Not in failure, but in necessity. Because when survival knocks, dreams usually get sold first. But Stallone didn't sell his dream. He buried it and waited. A short time later, he watched a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. Wepner wasn't supposed to last. He wasn't talented. He wasn't polished. But he didn't quit. He got knocked down again and again and kept standing up. Stallone didn't see a boxer. He saw himself. That night, with no money, no career, and no guarantee of tomorrow, he sat down and started writing. Not because he believed it would work, but because not writing meant accepting that the world was right about him. 3 days. That's all it took to write Rocky. Not a masterpiece, not a perfect script, a confession. A story about a man nobody believes in, including himself, who refuses to stop standing up. When studios finally noticed the script, something unexpected happened. They loved it. And then they ruined it. They offered money, real money, but there was a condition. They would buy the script if Stallone stayed out of the movie. They wanted a real star, a face people trusted, a voice that didn't slur. For a man with no money, no leverage, and no safety net, this was the moment that decides a life. Take the deal, be smart, survive, or refuse and risk losing everything again. Sylvester Stallone said no, not politely, not confidently, desperately. Because if he sold the script without himself in it, he wouldn't just be selling a movie. He would be selling the last proof that he believed in his own dream. And this time, there would be nothing left to bury. So he held on, even when the bank account screamed, even when logic laughed at him, even when everyone said he was making a mistake. He waited and waited until the world finally blinked first. But the victory didn't come clean, and it didn't come kind, because when the dream finally opens the door, it tests you harder than failure ever did. And that's where the real fight begins. When the studio finally agreed to let him star in Rocky, it wasn't because they believed in him. It was because he refused to disappear. They gave him a tiny budget. They watched him like a liability, and they fully expected the movie to fail quietly. Sylvester Stallone walked onto set not as a rising star, but as a man still proving he deserved oxygen. The filming was cold. The crew was skeptical. The cameras were cheap. The schedule was tight. Nothing felt like destiny. And here's something people don't like to talk about. Even when your dream starts happening, fear doesn't leave. It gets louder. Because now failure would be public. Every slurred line, every awkward movement, every punch that didn't look cinematic enough. This time, rejection wouldn't come from a casting room. It would come from the world. Stallone trained like a man preparing for judgment, not a role. Not to look perfect, but to look real. Because Rocky wasn't about winning. It was about staying on your feet long enough to hear the final bell. When the movie was finished, the studio still didn't understand what they had. They thought it was a small film, a boxing story, nothing more. Then the audience watched it. And something strange happened. People didn't cheer because Rocky won. They cheered because he refused to quit, because everyone in that theater had been told at least once, "You're not good enough." They saw their own failures in his face, their own doubt in his voice, their own stubborn hope in his walk. Rocky won 3 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Film Editing. Sylvester Stallone went from sleeping near bus stations to standing on the biggest stage in cinema, not because he was the most talented, not because he was the smartest, not because the world suddenly became fair, but because he refused to let necessity rewrite his identity. And here's the part people misunderstand. Success didn't erase his insecurity. It didn't fix his speech. It didn't make critics gentle. Even after Rocky, he was still doubted, still mocked, still underestimated. But now he had proof, not to show others, to show himself. Over the years, Stallone would fail again. Movies would bomb, careers would stall, relevance would be questioned, but he never went back to selling his dream. Because once you survive the moment where giving up makes the most sense, nothing scares you the same way again. This story isn't about boxing. It's not about Hollywood. It's about the lie we're taught. That talent comes first, that clarity comes first, that confidence comes first. Sometimes all you get first is pain, and the decision to not sell yourself when the world offers you survival in exchange for surrender. Sylvester Stallone didn't win because he was special. He won because when everything said quit, he chose to stay standing one more round. And sometimes that's enough to change a life. There is a moment in every life that never gets filmed. No applause, no witnesses, no music swelling in the background. It's the moment where quitting would finally make things easier. For Stallone, that moment wasn't when he was poor. It wasn't when he was rejected. It wasn't even when he sold his dog. It was when the world finally offered him a way out without pain, money to sell the script, a quiet life off screen, a chance to stop fighting and still survive. That is the most dangerous moment of all, because pain sharpens you, but comfort can erase you. Stallone understood something most people don't realize until it's too late. If you abandon the thing that hurts you now, you will spend the rest of your life wondering who you could have been. Not angry, not broken, just quietly unfinished. After Rocky, people started calling him an inspiration, a symbol, a legend. But if you listen closely to his interviews decades later, you hear the same man. Still cautious, still aware that nothing is guaranteed, still carrying the memory of hunger like a scar under the suit. That scar never left him. And maybe that's why his characters keep getting back up. Not because it looks heroic, but because he knows what it costs not to. The truth is, most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because at some point, they trade a painful dream for a painless life. They don't collapse dramatically. They don't lose everything overnight. They just slowly stop believing that their voice matters. Stallone didn't have a plan. He didn't have leverage. He didn't have polish. What he had was something much rarer, a refusal to disappear quietly. And if there is one thing to take from his life, it isn't motivation. It isn't hustle. It isn't even persistence. It's this: you don't need permission to take yourself seriously. Not from studios, not from critics, not from family, not from the version of yourself that's tired. Because the world will test you with indifference long before it tests you with opposition. And the real question isn't whether you'll get knocked down. It's whether you will still recognize yourself after the world gives you every reason to let go. Sylvester Stallone didn't become a legacy because he won. He became one because he refused to sell the part of himself that knew he was more than his circumstances. And when the final bell rang, he was still standing. Not perfect, not polished, but intact. That's the fight that matters, and that's why his story lasts.